of the world as very volatile, uncertain, ambiguous, and VUCA. And an example of how the VUCA disrupts expertise. Take COVID-19. China has adopted the most draconian zero COVID approach. And as we talk today, the entire city of Shenzhen, which is like Mumbai, is going into quarantine. Hong Kong has also had. So the expertise does not work the way we think. So I would like you to keep that thought in some of the themes that I say will drive the future a lot more. We are used to brands and centralized entities like Facebook, Google, Amazon capturing all the value, and they look irreplaceable. I would suggest that technology disrupts, and the enchanted reality will be more driven by joy and fun rather than utility. And that's the only way you will see JPEGs being paid for. The NFTs people pay are collectibles, statues, stamps. Collectibles are valued a lot more in the physical world or the digital world. Metaverse, I will define for you, arrives when you give more value to the virtual world than the physical. When your swag, when your identity, your medal in the virtual world, the likes on LinkedIn are a pale shadow of the virtual world that the metaverse will bring. And it's not just digital, it's not just visual. The enchanted reality, which we spoke about, includes all the senses. Simulators help pilots train, and it's a physical world, but it's digital. So the enchanted reality that will come, and Web3 is a lot of the same thing, where the data is owned by the creators, and 80 to 90% of the revenues flows to the creator, not to an Apple or to a Google or someone who takes it. So the future may be a lot more disruptive of the centralized brands built in the old age, and a lot more value will flow to creators, and a lot of it will be around enchantment. Please remember that operative definition of metaverse is enchantment, joy, and fun. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for joining in early. We will begin the session now. It's also being streamed on YouTube. And I would like to first take this opportunity to thank our speakers, Mr. Divyanshu Shekhar and Mr. Avnish Kumar, for taking the time and sharing their insights, be it the expert views or the practitioners' perspectives. There are a lot of takeaways that we can gather from this session. And with this, I would like to hand it over to Mr. Divyanshu Shekhar. Please see if you could do a screen share and share your presentation.
Yeah. Hi, Vinay. Thanks for giving this opportunity. Let me know if my video is visible and I'm audible.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Okay. And give me a moment. Let me know my presentation is also visible.
Yes, it is.
It is? Okay. So should we start?
Yes, we can get started.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Vinay, and thanks to Thai Bangalore for giving me this opportunity to talk about such an important topic, right, which is so relevant in current times. When we talk about sustainability today, means if you go back, say 3-4 years back, there was not much talk about sustainability. We have been doing a lot about sustainability, but this has just gone leaps and bounds, right? And why this topic is so much in talks these days, right? Because there has been so much globalization, right? If you see the the slide which is there on your screen, right? So there's nothing means all the data points. I'm not going to go to the data points, but you can see the impact of globalization and whatever we have transformed on Industrial Revolution 1, Industrial Revolution 4, where we are right now, what we have done to the environment, right? Whether we talk about water, whether we talk about land, whether we talk about other social parameters, right? The impact which sustainability has done is immense. Sustainable malpractices, I will say, has done is immense. So that there has been a lot of things which we as a individual, a lot of industries, a lot of companies, which has caused this impact. And one of the major causes of this has been manufacturing. And IPCC, if you see the body IPCC recently in one of the reports, they mentioned that 30% of the GHG, the greenhouse gas emissions, which happen globally, 30% is done by manufacturing. And that is where this topic becomes so much relevant in the current context, where there is so much regulation, so many transformations, so many companies are talking a lot about this. To be very frank, we talk a lot to a lot of CXOs from global organizations, and this is a big boardroom discussion which everybody is talking about, right? So what is means why this means again means reiterating the point that why, sorry, I think it moved. I will just go back here. So why we are talking so much about this, right? So if we talk about this, that many regulatory bodies have come up. Many government has put up a lot of stringent penalties and fines on unsustainable practices being followed by global companies. Let's talk about Shell, or if you see Fiat, right? They have been recently fined a lot of $1 million. Like Fiat has been fined almost around, sorry, I don't know why this is happening. So Diageo has been fined for 1.2 million pounds recently for failing to remove climate reporting they have not done on their climate emissions, right? The gas emission impacting the climate. So these are a lot of things which are happening, and that's where it is becoming more and more important and more, I will say, for these companies to become more proactive in taking sustainable practices. I will just like to quote one of the things which was recently told in one of the reports by IPCC, by United Nations Secretary General, that this current time size code red for humanity. Okay, let's take the example of fashion industry, right? So because we are talking about manufacturing, so I don't know, many of you will know, but it was when I read the stats, 2,700 liters of water is being used to just manufacture one cotton t-shirt, right? And it takes 300 years to decompose that. So think about that. We are all so much into we talk about fast fashion, where the fashion is just changing, right? And just a small basic cotton t-shirt is going to take 300 liters. So those are the things which are going in the wrong direction, and that is where we have to take a lot of stringent measures, and that is where these all penalties are coming to the picture. So moving on. So I just spoke about, so this is the why of sustainable manufacturing, why it is so important. Everybody is talking about sustainability in manufacturing so much. So we spoke about two key reasons, which is, one is the impact on nature, which manufacturing is creating because of the GHG emissions, plus the landfills most of the industrial organizations are doing. Second is because of the regulatory point of view, which we saw in the previous previous slide, how the regulations are becoming stringent and a lot of penalties are being put up by the government. The third point, which is very important, is the sustainable financial benefits, sustainable finance, which is one of the very important things which is coming up in the near future, right? Because we are talking about sustainable finance and sustainable linked loans, where everybody is trying to give their investments, or the loans which they give, all the financial institutions are coming up with this ESG linked loans, where they are trying to link the loans, the interest rates which the companies are going to pay, whether it is a government investment or whether it is you are going to take a loan from a bank. Most of the companies are moving towards that. Right? So recently, if you have seen, so we work very closely with a lot of tier one companies, tier one industrial companies. One of the companies which we work with is Bridgestone, and the US arm of Bridgestone was last year they signed a deal of $1 billion, right, with a Tokyo-based bank, where it was all linked to their ESG parameters. So if you do better, you pay less interest. If you pay higher, you pay higher interest rate. So that is the type of things which are happening in the industry. So nature, regulations, finance, and last but not the least is the behavior. So we as consumers, if you see us also, right, how we are also transforming. Our buying patterns have transformed. We are ready to pay more for buying sustainable products, even if it comes at a premium. That is the stats which you can see on the screen as well, that 65 consumers want businesses to stand for a social cause and are willing to pay for a premium. So these are, I will say, the four big reasons why we talk about sustainability and why it is becoming so important in current times. So let's now look at what is sustainable manufacturing. And I was talking in a recent forum, and where people were mostly talking about emissions. But sustainability is just not emissions, which is the E of ESG, right? It's just not about the environment. It's also about society. It's also about governance. How we are ensuring that in the industries, in the factories, there are good working conditions. The salary levels are relevant for that particular geography. How we are ensuring that the product components are not hazardous, right? And whatever we do in a factory or in an organization or in an industry, it's all complying with the law. So all these things combined together is what is sustainable manufacturing, and just not the environment part, which I know we talk a lot about CO2 emission, GHG emission, but there are other aspects which are becoming critical, which is also defined by UN SDG, right? All the 17 goals cut across all these three areas as well. So moving on. So how do we implement, right? So we spoke about the why of sustainable manufacturing, the what of sustainable manufacturing. How can we implement sustainable manufacturing? That is a very important part of it. And that is where most of the companies are currently struggling a lot. Many have taken a lot of strides. Many, if you talk about, there is a concept with McKinsey and World Economic Forum has come up with lighthouse manufacturers, right? Those are the factories of certain companies like Schneider Electric and Sandvik and other companies, where they have gone way far in their sustainable journey. They have made model factories, which are smart factories, where they have connected that entire IT, and they are bringing the best of automation to remove all the inefficiencies, right? Whether we call about quality, if there is a rework in a particular factory, it all adds up to using the energy, and energy in effect will have an impact on the GHG gas emissions. So everything is all correlated. Let's now talk about how this, there are 5 things which I have seen with many companies that these are happening with the sustainability in manufacturing. One is sustainable practices, keeping the basics, keeping the lights on, whatever you can do good, what are the efficiencies which you can bring in your inventory management, quality assurance processes. Those are the things which you can do very quickly to implement the sustainable practices. Second is on process optimization. A lot of companies are doing a lot on process optimization as well, right? So if I talk about minimizing waste and reuse. So recently, I read the news on Siemens Energy, right? Siemens Energy is doing a lot on, Siemens as a company is doing a lot, and Siemens Energy, which itself is focused on renewable energy, is planning to come up with a sustainable initiative for their wind turbines. They manufacture wind turbines, and they have taken a goal that the wind turbine which they manufacture, the entire wind turbine will have a recyclable component. 100% it will become recyclable by 2040, and the wind blades will become recyclable by 2030. So those are the things which you can do in your operations to minimize the waste and reuse and bring recycling into your organization, right? Moving on, the third point, which we are seeing a lot, and in the last and during the pandemic, which we have seen a lot, is the digital transformation which is happening. And manufacturing has always been a leader in this particular area, but more things are required. How we can leverage digital technologies to bring in the best of efficiencies in whatever we do, whether we talk about automation, whether we talk about robotics, whether we talk about process engineering, whether we talk about IT/OT integration, whether we talk about leveraging drones for visual inspection, or whether we talk about AI for visual inspection to check quality defects. Technology is playing a very key role, and that is how it's like sustainability is the heart, and I will say digital technologies are the brain behind delivering that particular theme for that particular organization. Next is around talent transformation. So we spoke about the basics. We spoke about how process optimization can be done and how digital technologies play a role in this particular thing. Talent transformation. So whatever we have spoken about, right? So if say I have a sustainable, say a company has put a sustainability target that they want to go to net zero by 2030 or 2040, right? And these are the sub goals or some sub North Star visions which they have identified. So how the talent needs to, because this is a new thing and there has to be focus, and every employee of that particular company, of that manufacturing organization needs to contribute. How do you transform that talent? Because earlier they used to work in silos. Now we have machines where they have to work. They have to do a lot of analytics. They have to take a lot of decisions based on the data analytics recommendation which is happening. How do you make aware about the sustainability interventions which they can do in their day-to-day life? So that's where a lot of talent transformations are happening in many companies, and we are working with several clients of ours where we are helping them transform their talent in this particular area. Last but not the least, right? So product design, right? Sustainable product design. And one of the interesting stats about it is that 80% of a product's lifetime emissions are determined by decisions that are taken at the time of designing a product. So if you take a decision while designing a product that you are going to use a sustainable ingredient or a recyclable component, that is going to go a long way in ensuring that the product, when it goes to the mass market, the GHG emission and the impact is on the environment is much lesser than what if you have taken a different decision during the design. So product design is one of the key components which has become very, very important right now. And if you talk about companies, right? So if you talk about companies, let's take an example of Pepsi, right? So Pepsi has taken a plan for 2025 that they want to reduce sugar and fat in products and design 100% of packaging to be recyclable by 2025, and which is going to reduce the waste by 50%. If you must be knowing about Unilever, they have tied up with and startup and they initiated a concept called Loop, where they were giving recyclable packaging for their shampoos and other products, where it was a online only product where you can just buy online and then you can take it. When it is over, you can raise a request and the company will come and pick it up and give you refill the product for you. So there are a lot of things which are happening, and big companies like Unilever, Snyder, ABB, P&G, a lot of companies are adopting a lot of things. British Petroleum, if you take an example, they have also taken a stride and using a lot of, I will say, technology. They are one of the pioneers in using quantum computing to ensure that they are leveraging hydrocarbon. They make hydrocarbon by efficient ways. So this is something which is coming up, but there is a lot of way to cover, because what is happening is we talk a lot about this 2030, 2040, and 2050 net zero ambitions of many companies, but right now many companies are struggling to understand what actually they have to do, how to report, and that is where technology plays a very key role. So, and for doing all these things, we need a framework, right? I will jump to the next slide in the interest of time. So if you see here also, right? So for doing everything, whatever any company has to do, they have to do based on certain framework. Say I am the head of say plant operations for a particular company, whatever I do today, I need to ensure that I always ask the question whether it is going to help me to achieve net zero, whether it will help me to make it more circular, and whatever I'm going to do, is it going to help me to bring in a safe environment for the people who work with us, for the consumers who are going to consume. So if these three framework, these three value drivers are being thought through, I think most of the companies can succeed in all the targets which they have planned in the coming future. And before I close, because if you see the transition which I have done, I spoke about the why, then the what, and then the how, and how technology is going to play a very, very big role. Right? Whether we talk about metaverse, whether we talk about big data analytics, whether we talk about industrial Internet of Things. Ecolab is one such company which has built a cloud native Microsoft platform, which gives customers visibility into water treatment. So I spoke about, right, water, waste, and energy. These are the three things which manufacturing companies try to focus on, other than the social and the governance things which I spoke. Giving an example of Unilever. Right? Unilever, once they were in one of the manufacturing plants in Germany, they have devised a process how they can reuse, and they have actually created a brand out of the waste which was coming out of one ice cream, right? How they have changed the line and remelted the wasted ice cream and created a new production process and a new brand in itself. And it has sold 1.2 million tubs till now, and they have repurposed 160 metric ton of ice cream till now. So these are the things which are becoming very, very prevalent, whether we talk about in metros, there has been a excellent use of AI to ensure that air conditioning, which happens in a particular metro in Madrid, how AI can be used to manage that whenever there is a peak time, the air condition increases automatically, and where there are less number of people, how you can manage that, right? Because physically and manually it is not possible, and how they have leveraged. So there are a lot of stories where IT is becoming at the core center of whatever we do, but it's still a long way to go. And many companies have started embracing Industry 4.0, big data analytics. Metaverse is a new thing which is coming up and becoming a very hot topic now. But how it is going to evolve is going to take time. But Metaverse is going to have a huge impact, not only in industrial retail, but also the entire manufacturing value chain, right? How we talk to, how we do product demos, how we interact, how we design products. So Metaverse is going to create that intuitive, interactive scenario for all of us. Cloud computing is another aspect which is going to help a lot. We have spoken about sustainability by technology. Cloud computing is going to help in sustainability in technology, and it is not very specific to manufacturing. It is like applicable to all the industries. Whatever we do, say like we are doing this Zoom session, or whether we use our laptops, how we can make whatever we do in IT more sustainable. And there are studies which says that Java and C++, if you make a program in that, is more sustainable than Python. So those are the kind of things which are coming in technology as well. So one is the application of technology, and the second is how you make the technology more sustainable in itself, right? So before I close, right? So the final point from my side is that technology will drive sustainability is no more a question. But how we transition, how we bring about the change in the talent, how we bring the entire startup ecosystem to bring in the innovation, how we bring the large corporates to bring in the scale to drive sustainability initiatives, and how we work closely with the government to bring in the right policies and the right regulations so that we all can achieve to one single goal, that living our planet the way it was given by our parents to us, we live the same to our future generations. I would like to thank once again, hope this was useful, and thanking everybody, all the listeners. Happy to take any questions. Over to you.
Yeah. So if any of you have questions, please feel free to raise your hand. We'll take it towards the end because we have one more speaker. right? We have Avnish, who's going to present next. And I think we'll take the questions towards the end. It's interesting to hear that you mentioned Java and C++ will be more sustainable than Python. It's an interesting insight. And thank you for your compelling shares. Technology will drive sustainability. It's a matter of how do you bring the right set of stakeholders, right? So I think we will take the questions towards the end. Avnish, if you're ready with your presentation, please feel free to do your screen share.
Yeah, thanks. Let me just share the presentation.
Avnish is the founder of Livin Sense, one of the most trending startups today. Yeah, over to you, Avnish.
Thank you. Thanks. First of all, I think we have got a good baseline because we could see that what is needed for sustainable manufacturing. So I will try to go more into the next level as how it can be done, and that's what I've just said. Let me just bring it to the PowerPoint presentation mode. That's taking some time. Yeah. So sorry. Yeah. So, Livin Sense, we have been working in carbon decarbonization and process efficiency and decarbonization for more than 3.5 years. In fact, our focus has been improve the fundamental process efficiency of the production or continuous process industry so that we can deliver the overall sustainability. So when I talk about sustainability, as you heard, it is not just about this, the GHG carbon or greenhouse carbon reduction. It's a form of, it is all about addressing the waste reduction, material efficiency, sustainable materials usage, and then finally delivering the carbon emission, and also how it is being done. So GreenOps is the product which is the AI-based digital twins platform that delivers the carbon intensity offset. So let me just start because some of all this, the things you would have already understood from the previous presentation. So the industries today, which we are going to talk more about, is the chemical, petrochemical, and iron and steel. These are the key industries which is contributing more than 33 gigatons today globally every year on year. Definitely the impact on life, impact on the living beings on this planet, including our green cover, is significant because of this. And let me go to the next one to even understand what are the key factors which contributes to the greenhouse carbon emission, because that's where. So this is the end result of the carbon emission is the CO2 emission, and CO2 is not the only thing. There is a SOx, NOx. Even more worst thing is methane, which comes out of the burning of the coal and other things. And the reason is because we are still highly dependent on fossil fuels. Even if India is spearheading solar power and the wind power, but in spite of that, we will not be able to meet the 2030 goals. We are having just the SME segment alone is emitting more than 1 billion tons of carbon emissions. So imagine the kind of problem statement we are having. And then today, the challenge is, while a lot of new technologies are jumping into the fray from, we have been hearing from the green hydrogen to carbon capture technologies, there's a significant investment required because it is not just easy it's like a switchway or a digital switch to switch over from fossil fuels to green hydrogen and all. And moreover, those technologies are not even foolproof today. So how do we fundamentally move the industry? Because it is like a more of a carbon lock-in which has happened, and the impact, as you saw from the previous presentation, is not just that carbon emission. It is the financial loss because the carbon is today traded at 50 pounds on London Stock Exchange, and I saw that $75 per ton carbon, which will be as per the new norms. And then it is not about that. There is the end consumers are also now asking for ESG metrics, whether it is the government regulations or the end consumers like Coca-Cola or anybody who has been consuming the aluminum products. They are asking for that. So that is what is the need. And what is the challenge with the current lot of new technologies which we are hearing? One is their readiness. It's not even ready. It will take a couple of years before they become ready. And then their potential impact is still not 100% because they are only covering a part of it. Like carbon capture is all about when the carbon is already emitted in the atmosphere. And we need to predict accurately how much of carbon is getting emitted so that the nearest tank or storage tank can be utilized for storing that, and the cost of implementation. So what is needed is this carbon emission is a long-term path. It is a complete holistic journey which starts from the fundamentally making the entire plant to be digital plant, or bring the whole digital infrastructure which can capture every data sources, and that is what is required first. So that is how we have taken. So just to give that one example, so that why it is needed and what in a typical ethylene production, because the carbon is not an unwanted material. That's what we need to all understand. All these industries, whether it is petrochemical, chemicals to metals, the coke is required for the formation of the end product. So the formation of a coke is a part of this whole thing. But the challenge is if it goes beyond certain threshold, it starts decreasing the production efficiency. It starts reducing the furnace run length. It will start impacting your combustion efficiency. And it will also start impacting other parameters like pressure drop, damage inside the coils, and various other things. So electrical energy is just one input parameter, which is only controlling 30% of the carbon emission. The rest is thermal energy, the chemical and the raw materials. All this needs to be holistically controlled for the carbon emission to be managed. And that is what the need for industries. And to do that, we need a complete holistic solution. And today you can see the market size is huge. The opportunity is quite big. If in a petrochemical plant, if the energy consumption can be reduced by 1%, it can reduce your end GHG carbon emission by 5%. So that's the kind of impact we can bring in. And this is how we are trying to do it. Our approach has been to bring an AI-based holistic energy balance. It's a real-time energy balancing which directly impacts the unit economics of the plant. For example, for every unit of metal being produced, there is a certain amount of carbon also produced. For example, in aluminium smelter, because that's the one which has got the highest carbon output, every metal of or ton of aluminium being produced from this smelting plant, we get almost close to 11 tons of carbon. That is what the kind of impact it is. So until we control that economics, things will not get controlled. And that is what we are trying to do. So we are holistically addressing the energy efficiency, the input, which is the input energy, whether it is coming from thermal power plant or a mix of the different power sources, renewable plus thermal energy. Then second part is the whole production efficiency, which is combination of the physics and chemistry based models. And then the whole metaverse or the digital twin, which controls not only the real-time operations, but it is also giving the ability to simulate and prescriptive recommendation on real-time to control the plant processes, so that we can reduce or optimize your energy losses and eventually the carbon emission. So that's what it is all about. It works very simply in the 4 steps. The whole first thing it requires is to capture real-time data from various sources, which is the biggest challenge in the industry, whether it is sensors to PLCs, historians, or various other. We also need to capture data from LIMS. So as I said, like 3 things are very critical. One is capturing the input material data. For example, in an aluminium smelting plant, you need to know the alumina mix also, how much of impurities it contains. Or for example, in ethylene plant, how much of aspartame is there. So we need to know that those data will come from LIMS or from the laboratory. So we need that. We need the sensor parameters. We need the process data and the production data as well. So all combination of this data is required from various sources. And then that can be holistically addressed, because thereafter then the real-time analysis is also required, because none of this production process today is kind of a 1 + 1 = 2 kind of model. When a chemical reaction happens, a lot of unwanted things also happens. We need to have process fluctuation, understand how the process is fluctuating at a minor or micro level. We need to have soft sensor approach to convert those data points which is having high noise, because without that, the prediction or prescription will not give any outcome. And then it comes application of process AI model, which is nothing but, in my view, it is more about digitizing your current processes by leveraging AI models. And that's what it is all about, the physics-based model or chemistry-based model. And finally, digital twins is a way to represent it, because it gives the very similar replica of the plant. The entire plant has to be considered as a digital twin. It is not just about the equipment. So that's why when we talk about metaverse, it is the entire plant metaverse which we are talking about, where we can control and one parameter and see that where all it is impacting. So that's how we are looking at it. And every stage, we are having a carbon bench approach for understanding how much of carbon impact is happening in terms of what is the carbon total carbon emission is happening, what is the benchmark with respect to industry, with respect to that particular OEM specs, and how much of gap is there and how that can be optimized. So that's how we are doing this whole thing. And for us now, the data is no more the new gold. We are calling it carbon intensity offset as the new gold. And that is what the whole industry will move towards. And it will, if we are able to capture this properly with a real-time data capture to real-time analysis and control the whole processes in such a way that we can provide the entire carbon to benchmarking, that's where the industry will start seeing the actual benefits of on the OPEX as well as on the carbon side. And that's what we are delivering. We are actually looking only adopting to the industry where we see there is an impact in megatons, whether it is cement industry or ethylene plants or it is metal plants, where not only the energy losses, because energy losses is like a leaking bucket for me, which needs to be tapped, because if you are paying for 100% and 30% is wastage, it's a huge problem, because today 60% of the energy is consumed in industrial plants. So we have to stop that first, because that is like more of a sanctity to be brought in. And then the in-process emission, which is contributing to more than 30% of the global emission, which is close to $200 billion opportunity. So this is how we are trying to look into the entire emission control. And this is just one example of a smelting plant where we are changing the whole unit economics by reducing every ton of metal being produced, we are reducing 1 metric ton of carbon. At the same time, we are reducing the raw material consumption, the ALF3 consumption, we are improving the productivity of the workers, and as well as we are improving the overall product yield. Altogether, that is direct and indirect savings is coming in form of carbon dioxide. And just to give that, today, aluminum sector alone accounts for more than $1 billion of carbon emission. If you look at the current potential, which we have shown in the previous slide, we can impact almost more than 10 mega or a million tons of the carbon emission, even if we go for only 25 plants across the world. And that's the kind of potential is. So the potential is very significant. The digital innovation has the potential to really bring the large scale change today. And these are some of the other deployment where we have already deployed green ops and we've delivered in the petrochemical, chemicals to metals, or even utilities, which we are working with one of the India-based plant where we are not only improving the wastewater, but also we are helping to improve the energy usage and the steam quality as well. So these are some of the examples. This is all being productized and proven. It is already there. And that's pretty much is all about what I wanted to share and the various recognition which we have seen. But the key is we still need to work out. Today, what we have achieved is anywhere between up to 10% of the GHG emission by applying this technology. There is a journey where we have to continuously keep evolving. And as I said, from here, we are looking at integrating even with CCUS technologies. Even on the upstream side, we want to look at integrating with the green hydrogen technology. So we want to integrate all this technology, but fundamentally industry has to adopt to the whole digital innovation, because until that plant becomes smarter, all the data is collected and brought to one unified platform, very difficult to provide any impact. And that is what is the need of the hour. So thanks. I would open for any questions because we are 20 minutes. I wanted to finish it early and take more questions. So any questions, I can take it up.
Yeah, thanks, Avanish. So I'm just going to enable everyone to be able to unmute themselves and start their video as well. So let me just put both you and Divyanshu on spotlight so that everybody can ask you a question. So one thing I received through direct messages, these presentation decks can be shared, right, with the audience and the others, the reports especially.
Yeah, whatever I have presented, you can share. So I've made it
Sure.
for that.
Yeah, it can be shared.
So another thing that want to know is how are you working with large corporations, Avnish, companies like NetApp, right? How are they helping you facilitate your growth efforts?
Yeah, so no, that's very good question. See, fundamentally, when as I said, like it is all about, to me, moving the industry from where today they are, because this industry has evolved multiple times from purely electrical, electromechanical to electrical to automated industry, and now these industries are moving towards a smart plant, or what we call, whatever we call industry 4.0, manufacturing 4.0. Intel is bringing the entire digital platform-led innovation, which is what will create these smarter plants. And that can't happen without the companies like NetApps being in place, because today the biggest challenge, as I said, is the acquiring data from heterogeneous system. The data comes in multiple different formats and huge amount of data. Just to give one aspect of the data and where NetApp we are seeing we are going to impact the whole. In a typical ethylene plant, which is around, let's say, 20 furnaces, it's a kind of a mid to large scale plant. It can generate more than 30 terabytes of data in 2 to 3 years of their life cycle. And that data, if you need it, because finally our models are based on the historical data. And if you have to manage that data, your platform has to be very efficient in terms of the storage, because finally we are also emitting carbon, because if you're using servers and high-end servers, that will also add to the carbon emission. So we have to make it very efficient in terms of storage, managing the storage, and to access the data much more efficiently, making your data access very efficient, very short and faster. And this is where we are working the entire, I call it as an industrial DevOps, which is what we are building. And that is where I see the NetApp contribution is going to be helping us a lot in our journey.
Great. I see we have Ravindra from AB and Bev, who's also here. They're doing a lot of things in sustainability, and we will take some pointers from them. So the other thing, Divyanshu, was you mentioned a set of technologies, right? If you had to do a sort of a crystal ball gazing on, which of these technologies that you've shared, the metaverse, the big data analytics, the industrial, of course, industrial IoT has been for quite some time, blockchain, which of them would you see being amongst the most prominent technologies in terms of manufacturing sustainability?
Very interesting question, but there is no one single technology, right? So there was a very interesting Gartner has that their technology curve which they have, right? So where they talk about how all the technologies come together and the combined effect of it is what is impacting industry. We talk a lot about in industry 4.0 IoT, but if say you don't have AI, what you will do with the data which you have, right? And if you don't have data, what you will do with AI, right? And whatever automation which you are trying to do on the shop floor, right? And where we are talking about, say, if you don't have a human being inside a particular plant and robots are being leveraged in a factory shop floor, if you don't use automation along with AI to take those decisions, those real-time edge decisions, then technology is of no use. So to answer your question, I will say all the technologies are very, very important. And the way we are going to use, and Avnish very rightly said that the technology adoption, right? We talk a lot about doing POCs in multiple corporations, right? For multiple industry, let's do a POC and let's see the art of possible, and the scalability is very less, right? And that is where we need to all combine the forces. And as I said in my closing remarks also, that the startup ecosystem, the large corporates and the industries and the governments, everybody has to come together, use these technologies which are there to us and ensure that these technologies are being used. Very simple example is even a simple dashboard, right? If you know in a simple dashboard that what is happening in your assembly line, where all the inefficiencies are and how you can manage it, is going to help you to improve your operational efficiency, and indirectly it will help you your energy emissions, energy efficiency, and all the other aspects of sustainability. So,
Right. So Ravindra, would you like to share a little more about what AB InBev is doing in the space? And
Yeah, sure. Can you guys hear me?
yes, we can hear you. Yeah. Do you have any questions from speakers or any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was really good to hear from Avnish and Divyanshu. Thanks for sharing those insights. Very good stuff. What you're doing. Yeah, I think I'm part of the AV and Bev innovation team. And yeah, I think we're really working a lot on sustainability and exploring a lot of pilots with startups, especially on the predictive maintenance, where we felt I think it's important for us to have a good view of what assets what are the performance of each of our brewery machines are looking at. So we are definitely looking in that direction as well, to be more sustainable, to have the right asset inside our brewery at a high performance, so that we can avoid any of these inefficiencies or gaps in the system. And I really like the way you said about most companies are also looking at how do they leverage the waste coming out of the plants to be more sustainable, having that zero cycle, zero carbons. So I think we are working across different geographies where we're taking our BSG, that is the grain that comes out of, call it barley spent grain, BSGs, which is the outcome of a brewery. We use that to work with a startup called Recube, which is based out of Mumbai, who can help us use that waste into something which is more palatables. Like it could be a beer glass that can be sold in a Zomato Land event or any other concert events, where you can have a very solid product which comes out of waste. Ideally, it goes into a cattle feed, but now we're trying to monetize and at least be more sustainable in recycling that waste. So I think there are a lot of opportunities I definitely see. And yeah, love to know more about green ops, and yeah, and I'm connect with you, Avnish, offline and see what is that we can do from. I know you're working more primarily in the petrochemicals and others, but yeah, I'd love to see what you can offer us. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you, Ram. Avnish, I think you're on mute, or yeah.
Yeah, I'm on. Yeah. You want?
Yeah. So if you have any more questions, we will take it. The other thing here is that so you do. Somebody actually asked about remote working or hybrid workspace, which I see Avnish has mentioned on his company's website, and I'm sure even Accenture is. It's all virtual or it's hybrid again?
it's moving to hybrid, but yeah, it's still virtual. Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of the on-demand location, all of that also does help in terms of reducing emissions, right? Reducing.
Yes, well, that's true. And in fact, we have gone to a hybrid model because we definitely, being a startup, some on-site presence is required. But what we have done is also in our company, we have started implementing control over energy uses, and which we have automated it by using the predictive kind of lighting mechanism. So this is a very simple thing, not today, it's very cost effective. Based on occupancy, you can switch on and off lights, even the air conditioning equipment you can switch on and off. So that's what we have developed it our own, and we have deployed it in our office first.
Yeah, and one of the interesting point, which we are seeing in many corporations, everybody has been talking a lot about scope 1 and scope 2, but companies have started. Many companies, many large companies with whom we work, they are all very particular about even scope 3, right, which is not part of their ecosystem, right? And means I will say internal ecosystem, right? More about the travel, the suppliers, right? So all those things are also coming into picture, that how I reduce my not only scope 1 and scope 2, even scope 3 emissions. And data analytics, as I said earlier, also data analytics. That one of the things which we were having a discussion with one of the CIOs of one of the global companies, where they were saying that, okay, we have taken a target, Okay, 2030 we will be net zero, or 2040 we are going to be net zero. But how do I manage? How do I ensure that? What are the KPIs? How do I track? Right? There are so much operations which is happening in my entire organization. So whether starting from the design to inbound supply chain, manufacturing, outbound, warehousing, sales, so many people moving around, so many materials coming in, so many assembly operations happening. How do I confirm that, okay, I am zero, right? And that is where companies like what Avnish spoke about, like what Avnish is doing through Greenhouse or other startups with whom we work, they are trying to do, and corporates like us, we are helping clients to bring that entire data, because that data again means we have been talking about data a lot. And for sustainability also, how we connect all the systems, whether it is the system of records or other systems from the external parties, how we integrate that, make a story out of it, and track the correct KPIs, and then drive the sustainability goals for that particular company. That is very, very important.
Right. So we'll just wait in case somebody else has inputs. We're also streaming it live on YouTube. So we have a few people. What we also do is we have realized that many of our activities, we get people watching some of these sessions in shorter bite-sized videos. Some of our unicorn company sessions, we have created these short videos with Byju's and with all of them, where people learning and development has become very bite-sized currently. And the insights that you have shared, we will try and create shorter bite-sized content to reshare, repurpose with the audience. I would also like to take this opportunity to talk about our upcoming TiE Bangalore's flagship event called the Matrix. Right, it's been around since 2014, and this time we have we're focusing on digital next, which is essentially agriculture, healthcare, industrial IoT. Then we also have sustainable growth. We're getting global leaders, people into policies and regulations, sharing with us on the market and climate action drivers. Let me just see if I can do a slide share here. I think I'll do that. While we wait for other inputs, we will do this here. I think you can see my screen as well. Yeah. So this is the theme of this year's IoT Matrix conference. And we will be looking at, so all the things that you've spoken about, does come into this. It's on the 24th, 25th of May. It's a hybrid conference. We're also looking at a lot of future tech events. And so we have had a lot of startups who we've worked with our corporate partners and the others who have realized outcomes through the, so there is an awards link as well. And these are, we've also tried to evolve based on the current times. So these are the links for people to remember, to register for the event and to apply for the awards. What we will also be doing this time, and which we haven't yet announced, which I thought I'll share it here today, is we will do a lot of matchmaking between the startups, the investors, and the corporate leaders. Thanks to some of our corporate partners. In fact, I will also reach out to you, Divyanshu, and your team at Accenture. We've had the Intel Plugin Alliance offering to bring in their corporate partners who would like to connect with the startups. We have some of our partners from Mergerdomo who have brought in 40, 50 investors who would like to connect with startups. So we're going to be doing a little bit of matchmaking during the live event, and we will share it with you, the leaders, as well as the other startups on this session. So I hope all of you are in Bangalore, or where are you based out of? Yeah, I think you're on mute. Are you based out of Bangalore?
Yeah, I am based out of Bangalore. So
this venue is the Bangalore International Center in Domlu, where we're having a sort of a 150 people, and and we're going to have a virtual investor corporate matchmaking. In fact, Avnish was there at some of our virtual investor pitch events, which is very popular among the startup founders. And we have a curated set of startups who engage with investors and corporates. Any final parting thoughts that we could have from each one of you before we conclude?
Maybe Avnish, you can go ahead first.
So the only one point I'll ask, because an individual, all of us has a social responsibility towards reducing the emissions, and it could be in any form. As I said, like we are doing something, being even a small office, we are doing something. So it could start from reducing your wastages, reducing your water uses, to even buying anything which is in plastic or which is hazardous. That's all I'll put it. So let's save our planet. I think it's very important initiative, and that's all of us need to collectively work towards.
Thanks, Avnish. I think one of the points which I always talk about whenever I talk about sustainability is that sustainability is not a destination, right? We hear a lot about those 2030, 2040 goals, right? So don't think that I achieved net zero by 2030 and I stop and I will again start polluting. Right? So that is not going to happen. So it's a journey, it's not a destination. And it's not only to the government to make policy, it's not only to the industries, whether it is a agriculture industry, whether it is a textile industry or a manufacturing industry, their leaders needs to do. It's all of us, like Avnish said, we need to contribute towards how we live. That has a big impact, because whatever manufacturers produce, we are consumers, right? So that is the trend. So it's a moral responsibility for each one of us, and the industries and the corporates and the government, to work together to make this society and this environment a more livable place. That's all. Thanks, Vinay.
I think with your quote, sustainability manufacturing is not a destination, it's a journey. It's an ongoing process and will require more people to be part of the journey. So with this, I would like to again thank Avnish Kumar, Divyanshu Shekhar for your valid, compelling inputs. I'd also like to thank NetApp for bringing you guys for this compelling session. And we will keep engaging our audience and sharing more questions, thoughts, connections with all of you leaders, and look forward to the next set of learning and development sessions. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.